You guys have heard about the truck ramming incident down in New Orleans by now. That happened Wednesday morning around 3 a.m. So the FBI releases a timeline of deadly New Orleans truck ramming attack. Authorities reveal they now believe suspect Shamsud-Dim Jabbar acted alone in the New Year's Day attack on Bourbon Street. Federal Bureau of Investigation in the U.S. has released further information about the deadly New Year's Day car ramming incident in New Orleans, offering a brief timeline of how the suspect executed his attack. In a news conference yesterday, Christopher Raia, a deputy assistant director from the FBI's counterterrorism division, also clarified that only one suspect is currently implicated in the attack, 42-year-old Texas resident Shamsud-Dim Jabbar. We do not assess at this point that anyone else is involved in this attack except for Jabbar, Raya said. Though he emphasized the investigation was still in its early stages, he added, "We're confident at this point that there are no accomplices." The news briefing took place just over a day after Jabbar allegedly drove a rented Ford F-150. Well, he didn't allegedly drive it. He drove the shit. He was behind the wheel. Unless the person behind the wheel is allegedly Jabbar and not someone else. Because, you know, as we always say here, fuckery is always afoot. Drove a rented Ford F-150 pickup truck into the holiday crowd celebrating on Bourbon Street, the center for tourism and nightlife in New Orleans. 15 people were killed as the truck circumvented a traffic barricade at Canal Street and traveled nearly 2.5 blocks up the busy pedestrian thoroughfare. We'll talk about this traffic barricade in just a second, because that's kind of a pivotal part of this. The truck crashed near the intersection with Conti Street, and Jabbar allegedly exchanged gunfire with law enforcement officers as he attempted to flee. Again, he didn't. Allegedly, there was gunfire. He was ultimately killed in the exchange. At least 35 people were injured, including 2 police officers. Media reports indicated those killed include a father of 2 from the city of Baton Rouge, a single mother from the Louisiana town of Metairie, that's a suburb of New Orleans, and a football player who attended Princeton University. There was also a kid from Gulfport, Mississippi, 18 years old, I think, and he got killed too. So sad. Ray explained that authorities now have a better idea of how Jabbar came to be on Bourbon Street in the early hours of New Year's Day when the attack occurred. Investigators believe Jabbar picked up the rented F-150 in Houston on December 30th. He then drove from Houston to New Orleans on the evening of the 31st. In the final hours before the attack, Jabbar posted a series of 5 videos to his Facebook account, allegedly, proclaiming his support for the armed group ISIS, according to Raia. The first video was published at 1:29 a.m. local time. The last came at 3:02 a.m. By around 3:15, the deadly attack was underway. So he posted stuff on Facebook just 13 minutes before he did the thing. Okay. That footage indicated to Raia and his colleagues that Jabbar was 100% inspired by ISIS. In the first video, Jabbar explains he originally planned to harm his family and friends, but was concerned the news headlines would not focus on the, quote, war between the believers and non-believers, Raia said. Additionally, he stated he had joined ISIS before this summer. He also provided a will and testament. Authorities emphasized, however, that the investigation into the attack was ongoing. Evidence technicians continue to comb through the rented pickup truck for evidence. 3 phones linked to Jabbar, as well as 2 laptops, are also being searched. Raia added that the FBI agents received more than 400 tips from the public since the time of the attack. He appealed for further information, particularly about the suspect. Whether you know Jabbar personally, worked with him, served in the military, or saw him in New Orleans or Texas, we need to talk to you. Authorities have revealed that Jabbar was a U.S.-born citizen and military veteran who served in Afghanistan from 2009 to 2010. After leaving the military in 2020, he worked at the consulting firm Deloitte and appears to have done a stint in real estate. In fact, I saw a video of him talking about himself and his real estate, how he can help you find a home, or how help you sell a home, I think. It was very bizarre. An ISIL flag was ultimately recovered from the back of Jabbar's rented pickup truck on Wednesday. Bomb technicians also found 2 IEDs Those are improvised explosives devices placed in ice coolers near the site of the car ramming, one at the intersection of Bourbon and Orleans streets and another 2 blocks away. Now, this is what they were talking about, accomplices, because they thought maybe they had found one, or they said they had found one, and they thought maybe there was more planted around the French Quarter area. From the White House, President Joe Biden confirmed that investigators had determined Jabbar was responsible for the coolers as well. Yeah, that's what they put the IEDs in. Even though they have no evidence of this, like they always do. They're just guessing at this point about some of this shit. They've established that the attacker is the same person who planted the explosives in the ice coolers in 2 nearby locations, Biden said. He said he had a remote detonator in his vehicle to set off those 2 ice chests. Yeah, both Biden and FBI officials emphasized that they continue to treat the incident as suspected terrorism. Let me be very clear about this. This was an act of terrorism. It was premeditated and an evil act. Reyes said, he added that reports of other explosives found at the scene either turned out to be misinformation or not actual functioning devices. In yesterday's briefing, Reyes also backtracked from an earlier FBI statement that suggested Jabbar did not act alone. A day prior, Althea Duncan, the assistant special agent in charge of the New Orleans FBI Bureau, told reporters, "We do not believe that Jabbar was solely responsible, but Reyes sought to dispel concerns that Jabbar may have had accomplices who have yet to be detained. We've had 24 hours now to go through media, to go through phones, to interview people, to analyze these videos, analyze other databases," he said. "There's been hundreds and hundreds of leads done just in 24 hours. We're confident at this point that there are no accomplices." He explained that much of the concern stemmed from witnesses who spotted passerbys approaching the coolers where the IEDs were later discovered. A lot of early reports came out that there were extra people that were setting the coolers down, he said. It turns out those are just patrons on the street that were looking inside the coolers. We didn't know that at first. See, if it's New Year's Eve or Mardi Gras and you see a cooler on the street, chances are probably somebody left some booze there. Or it's a trap. It's probably a trap. It's a trap. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry chimed in to urge public patience with the investigative process. "No one does a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and puts it together in 5 seconds, he told reporters. State and local officials at yesterday's news conference also sought to restore public confidence after the deadly attack, which raised questions about safety precautions in New Orleans, a popular tourist destination. New Orleans has been in the process of replacing its bollards. Those are poles used to impede traffic in pedestrian hotspots, but city authorities have emphasized other barriers were in place where bollards have been removed." Now, these bollards are like giant, not giant, but they're very thick steel concrete barriers that come out of the ground, right? Or they insert them into the ground so you can't drive down the street, blocks off the street. What I found curious, and this is, I'm somebody that's haunted the New Orleans area for quite some time in my youth. And every time I've gone down to New Orleans, to Bourbon Street in particular, at night, those bollards are always up, right? And there's no way, like the sidewalk's somewhat narrow. It would be really difficult to get a car around one of these things, much less a Ford F-150. But the suspicious thing is that they were repairing these things while all this stuff was going on, like New Year's Eve. I've never seen that before. I've never seen them repairing these things like during Mardi Gras, because they get trampled. They just there's too many fucking people. So I'm wondering about these bollards that were just just happen to not be there, and all of a sudden dude can just drive through. But that's just a little theory of mine, just putting it out there. Mayor LaToya Cantrell also revealed that law enforcement officers have cleared the crime scene on Bourbon Street and returned the area to the city's authority. That allowed street cleaners to work for nearly 6 hours overnight to prepare the pedestrian thoroughfare for visitors, including those attending Thursday's Sugar Bowl college football championship, that sports ball in the Dome. The game had been postponed for a day following the car ramming attack, while its stadium underwent an extensive security sweep. That's the old Superdome there. Safety continues to be our top priority, Cantrell said, noting that law enforcement had been deployed throughout the city. Because of that, the confidence is there to be reopened Bourbon Street to the public prior to the game yesterday. Pretty wild. You just have 15 people die on that street just 24 hours earlier. I wouldn't want to be down there. Governor Landry added there was an unprecedented amount of law enforcement resources in the city. As previously stated, he plans to attend the Sugar Bowl. I'm glad he did. Whatever, who gives a fuck? Tourism is a pillar of the New Orleans economy, and an estimated 43 million visitors pass through Louisiana every year. In 2023 alone, tourists spent a total of $18.1 billion and generated $1.99 billion in state and local taxes. This year, the city is slated to not only host its traditional Mardi Gras parades, a high point on the tourism calendar, but also the Super Bowl, the most watched sporting event in the country. Cantrell gave a nod to those upcoming events in her remarks yesterday. I want to reassure the public that the city of New Orleans is not only ready for game day, but we're ready to continue to host large-scale events in our city because we are built to host.